Today, let's talk about Airtable formula fields. Airtable formulas are one of the most important fields in all of Airtable, maybe even one of the most important features in all of Airtable. The reason is that Airtable formulas let you have dynamic data. This is different than static fields, and they let you actually automatically fill out your Airtable spreadsheet. In this lesson, what we're going to do is talk about the difference between static and dynamic fields. We'll then talk about how to create your own Airtable formula fields, talk a little bit about how to write them, and finally, how you can get AI to write those formulas for you. So with that out of the way, let's hop into our CRM and start to build this field ourselves. Welcome back to our CRM example. We've got our Airtable sheet here with a few different contacts listed. And so far in this course, we've mostly talked about static fields. So fields like first name, last name, and title here are just normal fields. When you're working with a static field, you literally just type in data. So Sam Smith, maybe he's the CEO. You type it in. That data is not going to change. It's static unless you come in and change it to something else. With formula fields, we're going to be using a dynamic field. And that means that the data in it is calculated for us. As an example, right here, I have a formula that just takes the first name and combines it with the last name, and that automatically gets filled out. And so if we change Sam Smith to Sam Jones, our formula will update it for us. Again, it's dynamic and it is live. That is some of the power of a formula field. And so once you sort of get the hang of that, you can start to see why it can be so valuable. So what is a formula field exactly? A formula field is a field that lets you talk to Airtable and basically tell it what you want it to spit out. So as long as you tell Airtable in its formula language what you want it to do, it can do a lot of different things. And to illustrate that, why don't we go ahead and just create a formula field together, and we can talk about some of the different things you can tell it to do. So to create a formula field, as you would any other field, just click plus. You can start to search for formula and use it. And the first thing you're going to see is this formula input. And this is where you type your formula. Now, let's just start with something very basic. If we want a formula that outputs just the word hello, no matter what we can do is type in hello. Now, if you just type it in like this, it will fail. So if I hit create here, Airtable will tell me there's a problem. And the issue is that we're not talking to the formula field in its language. And so to use Airtable formula language, in order to get it to just spit out a piece of text, we'll need to wrap this in quotation marks, right? This is, again, if you're a developer, this should be very similar. If you're not, it's easy to pick up, I promise. If we wrap this in quotes and hit create field, there we go. It automatically outputs hello. Now, that's not super useful. What might be useful is having it say hello to one of the contacts in our database. And the way that we can do that is by referencing other fields. And that's one of the big pieces of this formula field that makes it so powerful, is not only can it do calculations, it can do calculations that involve data from the rest of the record. So let's say we want to reference Patrick Carlson there in name. If I start to type in name, Airtable will actually give us this little automatic helper there. We can click it, and now this exists. The thing with this formula field that you'll have to keep in mind is that you can't just write stuff, you need to write it in its language. And so to combine two things, we'll need to use the AND operator. And what this is basically saying to Airtable is take what's on the left, hello, and add the thing that's on the right, which is the name. So if I go ahead and add a little space just to make it cleaner, I can save this. And now our formula is coming into place. We've got something that says, hello, Patrick, hello, Brian, right? This is a bit of the power of the formula field. Now, in addition to just referencing data that's in the row, you can actually perform functions, right? These are operations, basically, that work with the data and perform some sort of calculation. So to give one example that's really simple, let's use a length function. What you can do is start to type in, and Airtable will show you some of the functions that it provides, right? So count all, false, log. We can talk about what some of these mean in a bit, but the one we'll use for now is just length. So what length does is it basically takes whatever the value is inside of the function and spits out the number of characters. So in length, maybe we'll take name again and pop it in there. And for each of these pieces of data, it's going to pop out the length of that string. So we can do that again, go ahead and save it. And there we go. Patrick Collison has 16 characters, whereas Sam Jones only has 9. One more that is really interesting to talk about is if else, right? So we type in if, it'll again pop up this little function preview for us. And on the left, it'll tell us how it takes this data. And so basically what it's saying is Airtable will look at this logical. It will basically look at the first thing you put in and evaluate that to be true or false. And then if it's true, it will output value 1. If it's false, it will output value 2, right? So if we take, let's cancel this for a second, take a look. Let's say we want to have something happen depending on the company size, right? So if company size is greater than 1,000, we might want to say yay. If it's less than 1,000, we might want to say, no. So if we come back over to our formula and we put in that if operator, or if function rather, we can now say if company size is greater than 1,000, output yay. If it's not, output no. And we'll save that. And there we go. All these big company people have yay. All these smaller company people have no. And again, you could only imagine all the really useful, powerful things you can do with Airtable formulas. Any sort of calculation you'd want to have happen, you can have happen. Any references you want to have happen, you can have happen. You can imagine programmatic SEO type use cases where you are inputting different pieces of text based on the data in these fields. It's really limitless. It is a ultra powerful field. And I encourage you to take a look at Airtable's documentation, which we'll link in the show notes, to basically understand all the different formulas and functions that you can use. This is really just meant to introduce you to the idea of what you can do. Lastly, let's talk about AI, everybody's favorite buzzword. So where AI comes into place with Airtable formula fields is with this new generate formula button that Airtable just recently added. And if you click that button, what it basically tells you or asks you to do is just type what you want in plain English. So instead of having to think about what the right function is or how to actually word this to fit into an Airtable formula, you can just type it out and it will do its best to generate a formula that works. Now, does this work every single time? No. So it's probably useful to actually familiarize yourself a little bit with Airtable's formula language, but it's pretty good. So as an example, maybe we want a formula that says include the length of each name and generate. Now this can take anywhere from like 10 seconds to maybe a minute, depending on how complex your function is. So let's give it a second while that loads. And this one was not that great. So let's try another one. Why don't we try take the first name field and add the last name field to create a full name. Let's try that one. Boom, there we go. So you'll notice it is using concatenate, which is one of the functions that Airtable offers, to take the first name, add a space, and then the last name. And so if we save that, there we go. It's taking the data that's in this field and this field, popping it together using concatenate, and creating a function. All right, that was a quick overview of the Airtable formula field. And hopefully you feel like you've gotten a bit of a taste of the power that it can provide. I would definitely recommend going from here and just playing around with some of the functions, starting to understand formula language a bit. But once you get the hang of it, this should be a huge unlock for how you work with Airtable. So stick around. We're going to keep going here into the next lesson. We'll see you very soon.